Hello and welcome to On Point. My name is Brittany Silverstein. Today we're going to be talking about the impact of social media on communication, particularly how it has revolutionized the journalism industry. Joining me today are two journalists who use social media in their jobs. First, we have Kim Bowie, social media and community editor at KPCC Radio, and we also have Stephen Rosenberg, online editor at the LA Daily News. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now, before we begin our conversation, let's first take a look at how social media has become so popular in recent years. Social media websites like Twitter, Facebook, and MySpace have taken over the internet by storm. Facebook was even the subject of one of this year's most popular Academy Award-nominated films.
People want to go on the internet and check out their friends, so why not build a website that offers that friends, pictures, profiles? I'm talking about taking the entire social experience of college and putting it online.
But how much are people really addicted? In our exclusive online On Point poll, we found that about 92% of those surveyed use Facebook on a regular basis. Students at California State University Northridge weighed in.
I am on Facebook generally at least once a day. I would check my Facebook, sometimes twice around lunchtime and at the end of the night. But that's the one I'm always on.
Mostly Facebook, no Twitter for me, and I guess only Facebook, not even MySpace.
I only went on Facebook actually because my friends kept bugging me to, and now it's like, take over Facebook.
So just so everyone's on the same page, Kim, can you explain exactly what social media really is?
Social media is about connecting networks of people together. Twitter, Facebook, MySpace, all of them are bringing you, your friends, your colleagues, people that share common interests in the same space, but instead of offline, online.
Now, were you surprised by the results that you saw in the video?
Not entirely. At KPCC, we see more interaction on Facebook than we do on Twitter. Facebook is quickly becoming more of a space for conversation, a place for linking up with other people and talking about what's important to you.
Now, what did you think of the results, Stephen?
Well, it's kind of funny because we have a lot, at Daily News, we have a lot more fans on Facebook than we do followers on Twitter. I mean, we have a lot more followers on Twitter, rather, but most of our traffic from social media comes from Facebook, so it's kind of one of those things. Say Facebook gives you a lot better results. People, it's like we don't really have to do anything. People on Facebook are just posting our stories, and people are coming and linking back.
Now, when social media first was becoming so popular, what did you initially think, just in your own personal thoughts?
I think I was a sophomore in college, and I was completely frightened of sharing that much information online. I thought it was an invasion of privacy. Why would I want to share all these photos and information about myself online when I already have my friends in person? Once I started using them, it does quickly, you see the benefits of meeting people that you wouldn't have otherwise met through these networks. So my Twitter network is much larger than my Facebook network, and I've met countless important people that I've worked with or interacted with, built projects with through social media.
Now, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, I'm personally on both of these services as well, Twitter and Facebook. I've never done anything on MySpace, but I do writing as well as editing for Daily News, and I use Identica as well, which is kind of a Twitter-like service that's it's built on open source software. And it's the same kind of thing, only it's a lot of people that are in the open source software space. It's one of those things. It's not so much the service about Twitter and Facebook. I think it's just about these kinds of internet-delivered services and what they can do for you as a person and what they can do for your newspaper or website or radio station.
Now, social media has been very popular in recent news, from Charlie Sheen getting over 1 million followers on Twitter in just a little over a day, and also, how families are trying to communicate to each other for the recent tsunami disaster. Do you think that there's an industry that benefits the most from social media?
I don't think there's an industry that benefits the most, but I do think the use of social media has changed a lot since we started using it. Instead of just becoming, hey, this is what I'm doing today, it's becoming a place to really get the word out. If you look at what's happened in Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, it's becoming a central gathering place for revolutions. It's a safe safe place for people to gather and share their values and organize themselves without fear of persecution for doing so.
And what do you think?
Well, I mean, I've written a few stories about social media lately. I wrote a Charlie Sheen story about Charlie Sheen's number of Twitter followers. I did a story yesterday on google.org, which is Google's philanthropic arm, and there's all kinds of social media type of things on that page to help, both to help you give money to support Japan earthquake relief, and also if you need to find people there's lots of social media kinds of things on there. And if you want to find out what's happening, if you want to find out when your electricity is going out, there's all kinds of things. For me, I'm not trying to say, oh, social media is this. I'm trying to say, what are these tools? What are these tools that are available, and how can they help? How can they help, tell the story and things like that? And for me, I mean, if you ask me who benefits most from social media, it's like who benefits most from Facebook? Facebook benefits the most. Who benefits the most from Twitter? Twitter benefits the most. They are basically having people use their services as a way to get either to contact their friends or to get their message across. But at the end of the day, it's like Google benefits the most from having links to news stories. Facebook benefits the most by having Facebook posts. So it's one of those things you always have to be on the lookout for the fact that these are commercial enterprises and they have skin in the game just like anybody else does. So for me, when I'm looking to use Facebook or Twitter from a business perspective, I'm thinking I don't mean to be so cold-blooded about it, but I mean I want to think of what is this going to do for my goals as a reporter or editor. How is it going to promote my content, and how can I do this with the least amount of effort possible to get the desired result?
And I would agree with that, because it's not necessarily the tool or the service, the website. It's the movement, the people. So if there's a news site 3 weeks from now that launched and everyone decided to move to it, that's where the movement's going to be. That's where you're going to get the most from as a news producer, as a person. The idea of online community is always going to exist, whether or not Facebook or Twitter or whatever survive.
Well, one of the industries that, obviously social media really benefits is journalism, and let's take a look. People now use the internet more as a tool to get their news. Our poll found that 68% of those surveyed get their news online, and about 47% use Facebook as their main source. Many news outlets also use Twitter, and most students agree that it's more convenient than traditional media forms.
I can get it on my BlackBerry, and I just get Twitter updates, trending topic, and all that.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how addicted to Twitter would you say?
Probably a 10.
I just click on the Twitter application, and I get all my news. Instead of me going out and looking for it like Google News or trying to remember all those various other websites and trying to figure out, what's going on. I just click on Twitter and bam, it's all there.
What I found very interesting about our OnPoint survey is that the results are very similar to the recently released Pew Research Center's State of the News report that was released on Monday. Now, in their survey, they found that a full 46% of Americans get their news online about 3 times a week, and for the first time, it has surpassed newspaper readership. What do you think of these results?
It's not all that surprising, and I think social media is really the backbone of the online movement. Our statistics, for example, at KPCC, we get more referral traffic from Facebook than anything else some days, sometimes more than Google search results even. And I think the idea of personalized news has really started to hit home and really started to become the thing that people rely on. They don't want to go to 18 sites in the morning to get their news. They want to go to one place, and that one place right now happens to be Twitter or Facebook.
And then did these results surprise you, particularly with the newspaper?
Well, I think we have an older readership than a lot of websites. Our newspaper certainly has an older readership, and our readership online is predominantly male, probably a little bit younger, a little bit more affluent. And we don't get so much of our traffic from Facebook or Twitter. There's certainly a good percentage, but I think for us it's more referrals from Yahoo and Google, more traditional type of referrers. I think what newspapers and radio stations and things are trying to do with social media is to try to provide more of a curated experience. Like when you get a newspaper, it's 20 pages, but there's been some kind of thought as to what goes into that newspaper. What are the most important stories? How do we want to play them? And the whole idea of the internet is like, oh, you, the reader, can decide what's important. But often the reader is looking for some kind of guidance, and I think a lot of, like for instance, for for daily news to be on Facebook or on Twitter, what we do is the stories that we produce, the stories that we put online, go out to Twitter, go out to Facebook. So if people say, gosh, what does the daily news think is important? If they care, if they should care about that, they can go follow us on Twitter or go to our fan page on Facebook and see what we think is important or what content we're offering. So we're trying to bring a little bit of that news judgment into social media space and not just have it be keywords, which we can do, but also have it be, oh, this is what LA Daily News is doing.
Now, how do you exactly use social media in your job?
I guess for articles that I write, if it's a blog, like if I write a blog that's focused on technology, I have that feeding into Yahoo and Twitter. What one feeds another. I mean, it's a complicated web to get everything fed the right way. All my various social networking things, but I try to have every article that I write on a blog, for instance, go to a Twitter and or Facebook feed. I just for instance, I had the Twitter feed set up. Now I have a Facebook fan page for it because a fan page is better than a personal page for this kind of thing. And the ideal is to get, we're talking company-wide, well, how many Facebook pages do we need? Do we need just one, or do we need separate ones for different kinds of content? And some people are saying, oh, well, I don't want to maintain so many pages. And some people are saying, oh, it's got to be, you have to have a live person there doing the posting to the Facebook Twitter page. And while that's ideal, oftentimes I'm saying, what can we do? How can we set up a feed? How can this be more automatic? And how can, we're out there, so are we covered for Twitter? Are we covered for Facebook? And just trying to get more and more places where people can see links to your content.
And then how do you use social media in yours?
I manage both the strategy of the Twitter and the Facebook pages that the KPCC has, and we have over 15 accounts on both Twitter and Facebook. I don't use it. I help reporters and I help the shows use social media best, and how to decide how do you want to interact with these people, because different shows have different personalities, different reporters have different personalities. We don't want it to be obvious that it's a feed. We want people to feel like they're interacting with their favorite reporter, with Steve Julian, who they wake up with every morning. They want to feel like when they talk to his Twitter feed that they're talking to him. And that's the experience we try to provide with help from the reporters. We ask them to manage their own. As far as the larger KPCC accounts, we have two different strategies. On Twitter, we maintain a lot of customer service. People seem to more and more come to Twitter for something is wrong, or you have a mistake in the headline, you have a typo on the page, I can't find my membership information. And it seems to serve as the first way that someone tries to reach out to you. So we try to manage that as much as possible, curate news, like you were saying, from other sources, everything from the LA Daily News to the New York Times, to get people the best breadth of coverage that affects Southern California. And then as far as our Facebook page, that's where we ask people to talk to us, to converse with us. If we're looking for sources for a story, that's where we go. People want to debate on Facebook. They seem to want to have lively conversations with other people who are just as fanatical about public radio as they are.
Now, on the same note of that interactive feature that you were talking about that social media provides, do you feel that you get more negative feedback, positive feedback, or is it just good to get any sort of feedback?
Any response is good response, generally. But I actually feel like public radio listeners are incredibly well-read, intelligent, well-spoken. They might curse. They seem to like to curse a lot, but they'll manage their own community by themselves. I've rarely, if ever, had to step in and say, "This is too much. You're getting difficult." So they seem to be. They're better than than people want to expect them to be.
And how would you say that your readers?
Well, it's funny because one thing we just started doing in the last couple months is we were using a Facebook plugin for commenting on the news stories on the website. We had another partner before that. We switched over to Facebook, and initially there's a lot of controversy because a lot of our readers are, they're a lot of tinfoil hat kind of readers where they, oh, I don't want to go on Facebook. I don't want people on my Facebook page to know. I don't want to give Facebook my information. So there was a ton of controversy about that. That's still continuing. But one of the reasons we kind of went to Facebook was before, a lot of the comments were anonymous, and for us, whenever it was a story any kind of perceived or real controversy, people just come out of the woodwork anonymously, just, you know, it's hate speech, anti-minorities, anti-women, anti just about everything, anti-Democrat, anti-Republican. It was just crazy. And it's like I didn't have the time to go through like 600 or 700 comments a day and get rid of the ones that were not any good. And with Facebook, the whole idea is that even though you can create a fake Facebook name if you want, people tend to be themselves on Facebook. They tend to use their own name. And we wanted to kind of make the conversation a little less coarse. I mean, yeah, we've gotten a lot fewer comments. I'm more than okay with it. To have the conversation, the level of the conversation rise a bit, I'm happy to have that. And also I'm happy in that the readers can choose whether their comment appears on their Facebook page or not, and most of them choose to have that happen, so it brings us more traffic, and it's been I think it's been a positive change, and it's a way for Facebook to kind of get into our site a little bit more, and it's one of those things that's mutually beneficial. Like same thing with Google. You know, Google makes a lot of money through search on links, but we get the traffic back, so it's kind of there's a mutual benefit there, and that's a little bit more of that for Facebook for us lately.
Now, because of the internet, have you seen a growth of jobs at your workplace? I know particularly your job was created from social media, so can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think the first time I ever saw a social media editor position was maybe last year, and since then the industry has boomed. Half of my job is just social media and just figuring out how to best use social media from now on, how to be innovative. And I think in time, we'll probably end up hiring a desk of people to manage accounts and to help us continue to innovate online. And you're seeing that a lot of larger news organizations, if you take the New York Times or NPR, for example, they have 4 or 5 people working on just social media, everything from blogs to comments to Facebook and Twitter and beyond, the Tumblr, Foursquare, and all sorts of other things that you can use to leverage engagement and conversation.
How about at the Daily News?
Well, a big part of what I'm trying to do with the Daily News, with the staff there, is try to get people to understand that they produce their product or their work is news, and where that news appears is totally up for grabs. It's not, don't think that you're writing for a print newspaper. You're writing news content for people to read or hear. So when you're doing journalism, you want to be thinking about, I can write a print story, I can have photos, I can have a photo gallery, I can blog this, I can do video, I can do audio, I can do all kinds of things that I couldn't do before. So you're trying to think of a person as a gatherer and gatherer and shaper of information. And there's so many more ways to do it. And for me, it's not so much having a separate online staff. We have a small staff. But getting the rest of the journalism staff, the reporters, the editors, getting them involved in the online process, getting them to do some of the lifting themselves. Like you said, you have reporters do their own Twitter posting and everything, and that's having the reporters get comfortable with things like Twitter and Facebook and get comfortable doing a longer story, doing multimedia. That's the end goal for me.
Now, can you describe a particular news situation in which social media has helped you?
I might have to think about that, but I mean, it can help you get traffic for sure. And I haven't done a lot of stories where I've asked for sources via Twitter or Facebook. That hasn't really happened yet. But it's just, for me right now, it's mostly trying to get that content out there and trying to get people to notice it. That's where I'm at with social media at this point.
And what would you say? Did you have any help getting stories when you saw them on Twitter or Facebook?
We've done a couple of stories where we've used social media as curation or aggregation. The Gardena incident where the kid brought a gun to school and it shut down schools. Because it broke so quickly, when news breaks quickly, I don't want to say we've given up on being first, but we recognize we will probably not be first in terms of getting the news online. But we can aggregate the news that is online through social media. We had high school students tweeting in what was going on, their parents asking, where do I pick my kid up? And we pulled all of those into one story using a tool called Storify that aggregates different types of social media. We had pictures in it. We pulled everything in, and that's been pretty successful for us. To, we don't have a reporter there, so we used what we had, and I think people appreciate that we made the effort.
Now, because there are so many opinions out there on the internet, do you think that social media makes it easier or harder to report accurate news?
Both a little bit. I think it's turned our jobs into more of, instead of telling people the news, gathering the news, like you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's really shaped the way reporters work.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if I'm looking for something, if the Twitter, if you subscribe to all sorts of people on Twitter, your stream comes by, you see, oh, this is what's happening with Charlie Sheen today, or oh, there's a car accident here or there. It's almost a tip service in some ways. Like I said, just like you, I will display Twitter feeds on the page. Twitter makes that very easy to do that. So it can help you. Like during the Academy Awards, I can do a feed of that, or during we have the NCAA basketball, we can do that. So it can be a source, and you can, in a way, you can just have it kind of run in the background. It can be just another tool that you have to kind of give people something to look at on your website.
Now, again, going back to Japan's, recent tsunami disaster, a lot of news outlets, they're reporting that this is the first major disaster that we've seen news coverage from all different angles. Do you think that social media helps with the scope of covering a story? Like that it helps broaden the scope?
I think it's amazing in letting us understand everything from the top level to the nitty-gritty detail. If you follow the Japan disaster on Twitter, then you see everything from an explanation of how nuclear reactors work, which I don't think any of us really understand, but all the way to someone saying that they describing the scene they saw in Sendai, and that breadth of coverage, everything from one person's vision to the large investigative explainer piece, I think is really pushing journalism somewhere new. It's pushing journalism to include the public in their reporting. So instead of us going out and finding sources, the source is already there. We just have to pull them in and trust them and use them.
Well, for me, I mean, I'm not looking at the Japan story specifically, but when I talk about Twitter, I call it microblogging. So it's a form of blogging. It's just quicker, and I think I've written many thousands of blog posts, and I think Twitter reshaped the way I think about writing, in that you don't have to, in a blog post you have to come up with a subject, you have to come up with the body of it. Do you need any categories? Do you need any tags? Whereas with Twitter, you can hashtag it, or you just pump the characters in there and it goes out. So there's more immediacy there. And yeah, you want to come back later and assess what you've done, but you can tell a story in little bits, and you can get information out there very quickly through a Twitter feed. Yeah, something absolutely, like for me, Japan is something that's happening far away. We do use a wire, but if it's a local story, like when we had a school shooting out in Woodland Hills a few months ago, it was a big controversy, and we used a lot of Twitter to kind of get out what was going on, because it's just quicker and more. It gives more people are right there. There's an immediacy to it that you don't have otherwise.
Now, what skills do you think that the journalists of tomorrow need to have in order to be successful?
The ways people are telling stories is always changing. I mean, there's it's Facebook and Twitter today. It was MySpace last week, or it was just blogging 2 years ago, or whatever. I'm not giving up on blogging. I don't think I'm giving up on microblogging or anything like that. But you have to kind of keep abreast of how these technologies are and how these methods of storytelling are evolving, and you have to just sort of adapt to that as you go, to try to think of how can I tell my story using these technologies. It's always changing, so you have to be flexible and just be conversant with what's happening. That's all I really see.
Do you have anything to add to that?
I think if you're going to be a journalist now, you have to be willing to change and innovate and not accept the status quo. The journalists that aren't willing to try Twitter or Facebook or whatever else it is that's next are really setting themselves behind. You have to be able to explore new ways to tell stories, different ways, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You really have to learn how to fail. You have to learn how to fail and fail hard and get up and go try something else tomorrow.
Now, do you think, with iPads and iPods and, a lot of media companies are now adapting and putting their websites on so that they would be able to play on those. Is your company coming up with any software like that?
We're looking at it, and I think it's increasingly important to be mobile friendly, to have something on mobile presence, because it's another platform. We've got on air, we've got online, and now we've got on devices, and you need to have something on there. It might not be the best, but as long as whatever it is there, you have a presence, I think that's good enough.
Where do you see journalism going in the future?
Oh, I have no idea. I'm worried about next week, and I couldn't have predicted where things are now. I couldn't have predicted this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I can't predict where we're going to be 5 years from now. It's just it's a total wide open field. It's like the financial pressures that the whole journalism world is facing, it's going to come to a head at some point. You know, every time a new device comes out, everybody gets excited. Oh, the iPad actually, maybe the iPad's the way we're going to be able to make money. You know, like we have a couple mobile apps right now. We have a smartphone app, we have a regular mobile site, and we're working on an iPad app. But everybody's thinking, oh, this is going to be the device. And the reality is that devices are ephemeral. They come and they go. And what are we going to do? You know, you think of when was TV news popular? Maybe from the 50s through now. That's a long time. Newspapers have been going for 100 years or more. That's a long time, more than 100 years. And what are we going to do now that's going to last more than 10 minutes? It's an open question.
Now, what would you say? Where do you think that journalism is headed?
I think it's headed more toward a collaborative effort with the public. I think the rise of social media really is the last one of the big steps in the public's demand to be part of journalism. But I don't think that should change the way the fact that we need to tell good stories. We need to tell good stories in a way that's small, like quick and digestible. I think the only thing that's going to change for younger journalists and for generations to come is how we tell that story.
What is your opinion on citizen journalists? Do you think that they're more helpful or harmful?
Oh, I think they're helpful, but you know, I'm probably biased in that KPCC just launched a new local site to cover South LA that includes citizen journalism that allows the public to come in and edit our stories and add to our stories, but also contribute their own stories. I don't think it's going to save journalism. I don't think we need to look for anything to save journalism, but I do think it's increasingly important in continuing that, filling the need for the public to have their own space to say their piece.
Do you have any?
Oh, just the fact that anybody can start up a blog or whatever and write whatever they want, and it can be seen by a worldwide audience. It's huge. I mean, I don't think that anything in social media, so-called, is any bigger than the fact that you can go and set up a website and write whatever you want and do whatever you want, and it can be seen by millions and millions of people. That's just a transformative technology that, I mean, for me, blogging is like 1998 or blogging is 2003. I think it's just huge that you can go put up some software and just write whatever you want and it'll appear. It's just the biggest thing that's happened, I think, in society, rather than just box it into journalism. The fact that people can express themselves in this way, it's changed everything. It's made regular standard media, you know, smaller because they don't have that lock on that kind of distribution anymore.
Now I have to ask, you know, outside of your career, are you a Facebook user?
I'm a huge Facebook user. I'm of that generation where I post things on. I'm very careful about what I post on Facebook, but I do use it frequently.
How about you, Stephen?
Yeah, I have a Facebook page. I have a Twitter feed, and I have feeds of my blog going on Facebook, but I'm not on there, you know, saying, oh, I'm taking a shower, I'm having a Coke, you know, my foot hurts. I don't do that kind of thing.
Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time today. Thank you both so much for coming. I'm Brittany Silverstein, and you're watching On Point. I
have a lot of Facebook friends who are probably, if they see the show, they'll probably hunt me down and kill me, but, you know, I try to just have it be, just like for business, I want it to promote what I'm doing. I don't want to give anything away to Facebook. I feel like if I just say, oh, it's a wonderful, beautiful day out there, I feel like I'm giving them something and they're not giving me anything. Of course, if I have a cute picture of the dog, maybe that's good enough for Facebook.